Welcome to the Hot Chicks Write Hot Books podcast with Jen Foster and Melanie Johnson, where authors give you their inside secret tips on how to be a successful best-selling author. Hi, welcome to Hot Chicks Write Hot Books podcast. I'm Melanie Johnson along with our co-host Jen Foster today, and we're so happy to have you here. We have a great guest, and Bacharach is here with us today. She's a two-time best-selling author, and we're excited to have her. Before we get to her and all her great information, I want to make a couple announcements. We are still having our retreats, which we hold twice a year. If you're interested in writing your book and writing it at the beach, coming down to the Dominican Republic with us, we would love to have you. Please sign up. We are at 100% for everyone who goes with us. It becomes a best-selling author, so we would love to have you come and relax by the pool and sit by the beach and get your book written and become a #1 best-selling author. Also, we have some product sales that are coming up. If you'd like to check out our website, we have a do-it-yourself program that you can join us for. So check us out at Elite Online Book Publishing, or you can check us at Hot Chicks Write Hot Books. So, Anne, we are so happy to have you here. We all need you. You're the accountability coach that puts our feet to the fire, that makes sure we get done what we're supposed to be getting done. Can I tell you, that is like one of my biggest hurdles, staying focused and not getting distracted. So I can't wait for you to give us some insight from your books. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Well, that's interesting. I think most people do need some accountability. And it's interesting, maybe you might want to start with just how I got the name Accountability Pitbull. So before I was going by Accountability Coach, and then I had a guy one time and said, my gosh, Ann, it's like you're just Accountability Pitbull. You just latch on and hold on to us and just don't let go. And I said, so that kind of became like I was known as a nickname, and I'm just actually starting to use that a lot more because I think people can visually get a representation of, a pit bull. Somebody who's going to latch on. Hopefully it's not in a bad way, it's a good way, but I think all of us, left to our own devices, need some accountability along the way to help us do what we know we're supposed to do in order to actually achieve our goals. It's interesting because one of the very first people I was coaching used to have his team say, well, Mark's in getting his whooping, so I guess we're going to get ours next. and the reality is that, you and other people are typically harder on yourself than I am, although I have the nickname of holding people, feet to the fire. And I actually just got off the call with another guy, and I said, the reality is you've just got to get recommitted and refocused because and he goes, oh God, I am falling off the wagon. That's what I need you to, kick me around. And, so it's fun, but it really does help people. And that's what to me is really rewarding. I mean, I simply put, I just hold people accountable to doing what they know they need to do in order to achieve all of their goals. And so it's just a little kind of, you think about the person on your shoulder, right? The good person and the bad person. It's kind of like, which one is going after me today? It's kind of, I'm just there, nudging you along. So to me, it's a really cool thing to be able to do.
Well, I noticed in your books you give a lot of tips on how to be self-accountable. And tell us, like, even setting goals. I mean, so many people, we don't set goals or we make them too big. So you talk about setting weekly and quarterly and yearly goals. Give us some tips of what we should do to set realistic goals and to accomplish them.
Yeah, the main thing is a lot of us do set goals, or we start out the year going, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And the reality is we have all these grandiose ideas of all the things we would like to achieve in our life, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, most of us don't really chunk it down or chunk it down backwards so that really we look at things in more bite-sized pieces. Mm-hmm. So that's what I do. I just basically say, what's my, big picture goal? What do I want to accomplish in the world? What would make my life like a perfect 10 and I'd feel, this way about my entire life? And then we just break it down into, okay, what do I have to do this year? What do I have to do this quarter? What do I have to do this month? What do I have to do this week? What do I have to do today? Tomorrow, the next day, every day, and then we just track all of that. So people have a higher probability to actually achieve their goals when you break it down into more bite-sized pieces, and that's more manageable. You can get your head around that, right?
Yeah. Well, I like that word that you use, track, because a lot of times people will set those goals and then they don't even look at them again. So if they're not tracking it or coming back to it or have an accountability coach that can track them and see how they're doing, then you're not going to achieve them because it just goes out of your mind. So.
Yeah, and we look at actually the cool thing is these spreadsheets I've been using since before 1992, and they're just, and I'm not an Excel person at all. But it's just really simple tracking that you know where you're at against your goal at any given moment in time throughout the entire year. So if I need to course correct, I can easily do it more quickly, as opposed to all of a sudden I'm halfway through the year, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to make up the difference.
And I really love what you said of chunking it down. Like people say, well, I want to lose weight, but well, how are you going to get there? I want to lose 20 pounds. Well, take steps. I'm going to start to walk. I'm going to start to eat like one smoothie every day. I'm going to replace an apple a day with the cookie that I've been eating every day, and start to make changes and make those little chunks, because otherwise it's just so big. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. So I love how you just make it into smaller pieces, and you can check things off your list that way.
Yeah, Melanie, it's really interesting too, because fitness and health is one of the, I believe in a balanced life, so it's not all about work. So one of the goals typically with all my clients is something around health and fitness. So a lot of times people will say, well, I want to work out, 5 days a week for an hour a day. And I say, well, what are you doing now? Oh, well, not a whole lot. So I said, well, let's just start with something a little smaller, like how about twice a week if we're not doing anything? And because the reality is, if they start with these grandiose things like where all of a sudden, well, yeah, you want to do that, but you got to build up to it, or you're going to not achieve it. Therefore, you're not going to continue with it because you're not consistently achieving it, so you feel badly. So it's the same principle.
It's like I'm going to go run. I don't run or work out at all, but I'm going to start out with a marathon.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you seem so knowledgeable about all this. How did you become the expert that you are? How did you become the pit bull?
Well, it's an interesting journey. I mean, the reality is I started helping my husband with his business, and he at the time was making, and he's a professional speaker. And I'm an ex-IBMer, so interestingly enough, I have a marketing and business degree, but I worked for IBM, and I started working with him, and his business was already making about $250,000 a year. And so I started to just apply. I mean, I was basically the marketing and sales person, the revenue generator, the legal person, the part-time coach, I was like the jack of all trades. So in order to do all that effectively, I had to figure out how I could do all of this in the time allotted, because we all only have the same amount of time, right? We can't invest it and get more. Wouldn't that be nice? But, so it's like, how am I going to do all of these things? So I ended up taking his business to about 1.5 million in a very short period of time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's because I got really focused and I started creating these systems that I now apply with all of my clients. And like I said, I've been doing this since before 1992, and it's just all these exact same super simple systems that help me accomplish the goals that I set to help his business grow, that people say, what are you doing? How are you doing that? And so it's basic business success principles that really helped me get there, and just applying those consistently, which is a big word for me, consistency, over time just helped me be able to do that, and then helped others, and I'm still helping others with the same exact systems.
Great. So what would you say are the top 3 biggest game-changing systems that people are listening that will really help them, that they could implement?
Yeah, the 3 systems that basically I work with the people that I coach on are basically have a prioritized action list. So that's like your glorified to-do list, but it's called I call it a PAL, your buddy or pal, prioritized action list. So everything you have to do is always in priority order. And I have actually it's a free downloadable spreadsheet that anybody can use. You can put it in contact management system or anything like that. And if people want that, I can certainly give that to you. You can share that with them. The other thing is really effectively using your calendar. So time management and time blocking, so doing like or similar things as much as possible together. And then the other thing is the tracking that we talked about, Melanie. Really applying the tracking systems. What am I actually doing or not doing to get the results I'm getting or not getting? And then I can easily more course correct. So that's the prioritized action list, a tracking spreadsheet, so that's monthly and annual, then chunking it down into weekly and daily, and then your calendar. Those 3 things in itself significantly can impact a person's life.
That's great. So let's talk about your books. How did you know you wanted to become an author, or did you just write a book one day?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, for many years, I always thought, wouldn't that be so cool, to be an author, to write a book? I mean, how many times have you said to yourself over your lifetime, gosh, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
How many times have you heard people say that even to you?
Right.
Wow, writing a book, I've always wanted to do that, especially when you are an author, and people say, oh, I've always wanted to do that. I mean, so many people say that, don't they?
They do.
Yeah. So I kind of had the same feeling that, oh, it'd be so cool to be an author and write a book. And the reality is, I didn't really ever maybe think that that was going to occur. And I was actually playing tennis, and I ended up getting shoulder surgery, so I couldn't play tennis for a while. And I thought, well, I'm already busy, but since I can't play tennis, what do I fill that time with? So that's when I said, well, I guess now's as good as time as any. So I just thought, well, I'll start laying out what I think a first book would look like.
Yeah, awesome. And you have 3 books or 2?
I actually have 5.
5.
5? I didn't see 5. I saw that you were an author of 2 and a co-author of 1. How did we miss the other 2?
Well, I have Excuses Don't Count, Results Rule, and The Roadmap to Success with Stephen Covey and Ken Blanchard.
Oh, wonderful.
That's awesome.
And I've got Live Life with No Regrets, How the Choices We Make Impact Our Lives. I've got the Work-Life Balance Emergency Kit, which is a really big book. And the other book I have is actually not a paperback or anything. It's more of an electronic book, and it's No Excuses. So it's an audio and booklet type book. So actually, I count that as 5.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
We're going to put all
your
5 of those on our site, if that's okay. If we can offer all 5 of those on our site, so let people know that they can find them right here.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
And we'll definitely be telling everyone where they can get those on your website at the end of the.
Sure, we can even offer them a discount too. Happy to do that.
Okay, great.
Oh, that would be awesome. So tell me a little bit, how was the process of starting to write the book? I mean, did you record it? Did you start organizing your thoughts down on paper? Did you do an outline first? What did you do?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes the first book, is always the hardest to kind of, what do we do? What do you do? What happens? So, and the first book's always your pride and joy, right? It's like the first thing I ever created. Although I have to say it's not my favorite. Sorry, it's my first one, but not my favorite.
So which is your favorite? Now you've
my favorite. Oh, my favorite is Live Life with No Regrets.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's my favorite book. The biggest book that has the biggest impact probably would be the Work-Life Balance Emergency Kit, because it's like 230 pages. It's like a ton of information. But my favorite is Live Life with No Regrets. So, I mean, the first time I started, I just said, what do I really need to do? So, what do I really want to have in a book? And, I mean, the first thing comes to you is really, what do I want to write about, right? So what do I know that maybe somebody else doesn't know? Or what do I know? I mean, I don't know anything nobody else, I mean, everybody else knows everything, right? It's just how you phrase things, how you present things, how you do things. So to me, there's not a whole lot that's really new in the world. It's just how you go about presenting it to people in a way that's going to make a difference for them. And so, yeah, so my whole thing, my motto is excuses don't count, actually, unless you're dead. And we can talk about titles later, but the reality is what I asked everybody about the title, and they said, oh, Ann, that's really harsh. And I said, but that's my motto for my coaching, right? Excuses don't count unless you're dead. So if you're dead, I guess that's your excuse for not showing up and doing the work.
My sons now, okay? Excuses don't count unless you're dead. That's going to be the new one around this house.
So I thought, well, that's kind of my whole motto is excuses don't count, because excuses don't serve anybody. So to me, it's starting with a concept of something you really believe in. And so I started with that and said, okay, what would I want to put in a book that's about excuses don't count and about accountability, about what I do? And so that's kind of how I started, and just like you said, kind of started to lay out generally an outline of what I thought I would want to put in a book, and that's how I got started.
And about how long did it take you to write your book?
Always longer than you think it will.
That's true.
But I started a long time ago. Like, you guys have a great process now that's really quick and easy. But you know, a long time ago when I wrote my first book, and all these books have been out for a fairly long period of time. It's, you know, I thought, oh, I can get this done in, you know, 30 days or something like that. So I basically interviewed ghostwriters because I know I'm not a writer myself. I know I can jot down my thoughts and what I want to say, and I need somebody to make it sound, you know, proper. I need somebody to write the English part of it, because somebody's going to understand in sentence structure that's, you know, the right sentence structure, right?
Right.
So so I just hired a ghostwriter. I interviewed a number of people and found a ghostwriter, and just hired somebody to say, okay, this is the concept I want, you know, put it all together and send me whatever you come up with. And so I sent him just tons of material. I probably, you know, just whoosh, you know, into his in basket came all this material and said, make some sense of all that. And, you know, so he kind of spit out what he thought I was trying to say, and that's you kind of go back and forth, and that's where the time really comes in.
Okay. That's good. What would you say?
I think ultimately the question, I mean, it took me probably about 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, that's still not too bad. I don't think that's too bad. You know, I mean, because some people can take them years, and there's some people who start and they never finish and never get published. So,
right.
Well, starting and finishing is a lot of people, for sure. I would agree with that.
Yeah, and when you're working and doing other things in between, I think that's really great.
Yeah, I think so. Well, what would you say, you know, what are 3 tips that listeners could use to start writing their books? I mean, I think tie in some of your accountability stuff, because like Melanie just said, so many people start and then they never finish. So what would you say are your 3 tips to get people
started?
Yeah.
I'd say really just
finish.
And finish.
Yeah.
Get them started and finish. Okay.
It's not what you start, it's what you finish.
The last part's the hardest part.
Yeah.
The reality is, I think that just to get started, like I said with my first book, my motto is excuses don't count unless you're dead. So I started with that concept, and then you just write from there. Kind of like what makes you feel like excuses don't count, like what comes up for you. With my second book, I really have always tried to live my life with no regrets. So obviously the title of the book, Live Life with No Regrets. So if I were to live my life with no regrets, what would that look like, or what would I do, or, you know, how would I, you know, manifest that in my life? And so actually what I like about my second book, The Live Life with No Regrets, is that I wanted a story for every chapter. So I wanted stories of people who just did things that I thought were just cool. I was in Mexico, for example, and a lady there from Canada. There's actually a lot of Canadians in Mexico. She ended up, she went down there on vacation, and she basically never went home, and she's still there. I mean, she's my age, never went home, didn't have any regrets. I mean, kind of, her name is Susie, and she told me her story, because I said, how did you get here, and how did you stay here, and what made you want to do this, and, you know, how do you feel about your choices and your decisions? And I just thought it was really a cool, simple, just very simple, but very a cool story that, like, I don't think I could ever have done that. So things like that I was impressed with. So basically, again, when I wrote my second book, I hired a ghostwriter and said, these are the people I want you to interview. These are kind of the questions that I want you to talk to them about and get their feedback on, and put those just short snippets of stories into each one of my book. But to me, it all starts with a concept. What do you believe in? What are you passionate about? Kind of, what's your motto? What do you know, what's a rule you live by in your life? And that's kind of what's helped me create the books that I've created. You know, the Work-Life Balance Emergency Kit. I mean, I really believe in work-life balance, and everything I do is really revolved around that. So again, what would that look like? What would, you know, all that encompass? And, you know, how would I really go about doing that in my life? You know, and then no excuses. So again, my motto, no excuses. I mean, it doesn't matter. So to me, the easiest thing is to have people start with a concept or a belief that's within themselves. And I think from there, you kind of start going, oh, you know, this would be part of that, or this would be part of that, or this would be so cool if we talked about that. So that's, to me, where I would start, at least where I started for myself.
I love that you talk about story because that's part of Jen and I's system that we sell and promote and work with our clients in is having that story. People connect to story, come up with the facts that you're going to do or the outline or the chapters, but then whether it's your story or somebody else's story that you know that you can tell that reinforce that. I think that's so important. And being the accountability coach, so you get started and you talk about in one of your books about life's distractions. So tell us how to avoid life's distractions, whether it's to write our book or accomplish something at work, and what are the biggest distractions, and how do we change that behavior from having those in our lives on a regular basis?
Boy, that's a big question. Ooh, how much time do we have?
Yeah.
That's a really big question. So how do we finish the book, I guess, would be, the next piece of that. And to me, that's where you guys come in, to be honest. I think without a process or a system, something like you all have created, it's hard. To the bottom line, if you don't really have somebody who's holding you accountable for each step of the way, to really go, what's my next step? What do I do next? What do I do next? How do I do that? Somebody's there who's really been there, done that, to help you really get you guided along the way. That's why I thought 6 months was a long time, because I thought, what am I doing? And I didn't think it would take this long, And even my second book took 6 months, and I thought I know how to do this, and it still took 6 months. But it's just reading and rereading and reading and rereading. And how do you have to spend the time to do that. And if you don't really have a support team or person there to help you really finish that, and think how bad you'd feel if you started a book and never finished it.
Right.
You put all that into it and then you never got it done. That would be a live life with a regret, I would think. And so that's why I think, going to your program in the Dominican Republic, man, I'd love to be able to just go to the Dominican Republic and follow your process, I think would be, ideally speaking, the best way for somebody to do this. And I'm just being extremely candid about that.
Yeah, Dominican's beautiful, and getting your book done is so nice, and our clients from before, they feel so good and rewarded right now.
Absolutely, I can imagine. It's just a great feeling.
Yeah.
And to get it done in such a short period of time, but you've got somebody there to help you all along the way, and that's really the best way to accomplish anything, is that accountability, that we talked about.
Somebody there.
Yeah.
What stops us from really living the life that we want? Not having those regrets, like laying on your deathbed, like you said, and saying, well, I had this book, I wish I would have done that, I wish I would have done this. Is it fear that stops us from living the life that we want and doing all the great things that we want to do? What is it?
A lot of times it's fear, I think, of the unknown that holds us back. People could say it's a lot of other things, but to me, for most people that I coach anyway, it's the fear of not knowing, or the fear of whatever it is they're afraid of. And so a lot of times again, my accountability pit bull comes out. It's like, look, you've been procrastinating on this thing for a long time. Just suck it up, put your big girl pants on or big boy pants on, and just get it done. And this is, where's the outcome you want? What's the worst thing that could happen? Worst, what's the worst? And typically the worst thing that could happen is really not that bad.
Well, I love that you said that, because what's the worst thing that can happen if you do it, but what's the worst thing that's going to happen if you don't?
Exactly. And that's the big one, because when they don't get the outcomes that they want. Therefore, they don't feel like they're really living up to their true potential, accomplishing all the things that they want. And that's why I push them to do those things. So you're afraid. And then the reality is, when they do them, they go, what was I afraid of? My God, this was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. Yeah. And then then it's easier to do the next thing the next time, because they're not quite as afraid the next time. So then they can do it more easily again, and then the next thing again, and the next thing again.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to go and do it and experience it to get it. It's just like,
you got to push them to do that sometimes.
Exactly.
So you got to push yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I had to go get crowns yesterday at the dentist. And every time you get numb, you always think that needle's going to hurt so bad every time, and it's never as painful as you think it's going to be. And even though I've had whatever that stuff is, Novocaine or whatever before, but every time they get that needle out, you're like, oh, it's going to hurt so bad, and then it doesn't even you barely even feel it. And you're like, I don't even know I was scared. It didn't even hurt at all, right? So it's just kind of that thing. You just have to push over it and go through it, and then you realize it wasn't you. You didn't have to be afraid.
Yeah, it makes it easier every time, for sure.
Yeah.
So tell us, what's the best thing that's happened to you, your business, how it's changed you having a book?
Well, I have to say, I mean, I think there's some really good benefits of having a book. So I don't know if necessarily they came about because of the book, but you want to believe that it's a whole package, that it's part of it, for sure. Right. I think that it helps build credibility. I think that it really helps inspire you to do more, to be more, because you've accomplished already, writing a book. So I just think overall it's a sense of accomplishment. You can obviously make more money, you can do more business. People's perception of you, I think, gets elevated to a much higher level. And I think all those things have happened for me just because, oh, you've got a book, or, oh, wow, your book has these reviews, or, oh, wow, you've got, this or that. I mean, and you can turn your books into so many things. Like, for example, my actually, I have my Excuses Don't Count, My Live Life with No Regrets, or also I made them into audiobooks. Mm-hmm. So those are audiobooks, ebooks, paperback books. My No Excuses is basically, it's an ebook and audio. But you can turn them into online programs, so you can make even more money. I mean, there's so many things you can do with a book. You can make them into, iTunes podcasts. You can make them into, articles. You can make them into, workbooks, little, like ebooks, little smaller, components of things that you can do. You can offer white papers. I mean, there's so much you can do and so much opportunity that you have once you're an author and have a book that really helps you build a business, I think, more fully than just a single component. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it's really, really great what you said, repurposing your content, making sure that when you do write a book and you finish it, well, what's the next step? Do something with that book, or go on to make an audio of the book, or just repurposing your content. Or, like you just said, taking your podcast and turning that into a book. We're doing that. We already just started transcribing our podcast for the first 15. So it's really great. And we'll have a second book, and the first chapter will be Anne Bacharach, because we'll have, so that it's great to make sure you do that, and it's great that you've done that already.
And you have been such an inspiration. I got tons of great ideas. Jen and I are going to be more focused and get more accomplished. You just watch what's going to come out of us next just by interviewing you. You gave us so much inspiration and good tips. So please tell us where we're going to get that worksheet that you mentioned earlier. That's a free downloadable. Tell us that.
I'd have to actually look it up. So I'd have to send it to you.
Is it at theaccountabilitycoach.com?
No, it's actually a special secret link.
Okay. Well, do you have an opt-in page where they can go in and subscribe?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. If they go to accountabilitycoach.com and they can join my silver member inner circle, that gives them 10% automatically off everything in my store. So any books, anything they want, and I package my ebook and my audio book together to make it actually more appealing. Plus, they get 10% off that. There's also an audio download on basically how to really focus on your high payoff activities and enhance your time management skills. It's a free audio on the accountabilitycoach.com that they can easily download. They can also look at a ton of high content webinars that are free. I just have a ton of free, valuable things for people. All those are on accountabilitycoach.com right off my main website area.
Okay, let me go ahead and screen share really quick just to show everyone what that looks like.
Okay.
So everyone take a look here. Can you see that?
This is here and get all the free stuff.
Yeah, theaccountabilitycoach.com. And just right down here, you can put in your name and email and press submit, and you'll get that. And I'm sure if you email her, she'll send you that other worksheet that she was talking about.
Yeah. Also, if you hover over the free articles, that's where the free webinars are.
Okay,
and
right here.
And they can get. There's a ton of high content free webinars that are listed right there, and more that's not listed there that they can choose from. So just kind of pick the topics that are most pertinent to you, and you can get that at no charge. So
sounds great.
And the secret link, and we'll post it here. We'll give it to them
Yeah, we'll make sure it's on the video. So theaccountabilitycoach.com. You can also go to theresultsacademy.net, which also has some great business acceleration programs you can go to, and training and her podcast. Make sure that you do that, and that would be great to get those spreadsheets and get our tracking, right?
Yay!
I feel like it was like Christmas today. We got a bunch of free stuff. It was like you just kept giving. I love it.
Well, I'm a content machine. If somebody says, I don't have this, and I think, you've got to have that, I just create it or make it so that they have something. And so that's why I end up with so many new things that get created, is because people don't seem to leverage what they have or what's available. And so I just create something that's super simple for them to be able to use. And I just like helping people, so I end up giving a lot for free away, I guess.
I love that. Such a pleasure. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And Jen's going to post everything else, so we'll have everything up there so we can get a hold of you. Your books will be on our site as well as your site. Of course, with her site, you get 10% off, so it might be better to go there. Just saying.
Well, thanks, ladies. I really appreciate being invited on the show today. It's awesome.
Great, and we want to remind everyone, come to a retreat with us. We promise you'll get your book written in a week, and we do all the marketing and holding your hand for you. And we have products coming out that you can do it yourself if you'd like, or with us and the products. So you'll find those on our website. They're launching in September, and we are so happy to have you here. So come again next time, and have a great week.
Yeah, and see us at hotchickswritehotbooks.com or eliteonlinepublishing.com.
Awesome.
For more information, you can visit our website at hotchickswritehotbooks.com, or you can text your name and email address to 832-572-5285.